A week before my son's wedding, I accidentally overheard something that changed everything. My family was planning to use me as a free babysitter for about 15 children during the entire reception, without even asking me. So I made a decision. On the wedding day, my son called me in panic. "Mom, where are you?" I laughed softly and told him not to wait for me or for the buffet I had promised to prepare. My name is Charlotte Fitzgerald. I'm 72 years old, and I never imagined I'd need to teach my own family such a painful lesson at this stage of my life. For months, I had been preparing for my son Marcus's wedding. I wanted it to be perfect. I volunteered to handle the entire buffet to save them money, about $3,000 worth of ingredients, all paid by me, all made with love. I also offered to decorate the reception hall, create the centerpieces, and coordinate with vendors. It was my gift. My way of saying how happy I was that Marcus had found love again after being widowed when Marcus introduced me to Tiffany 2 years ago. She seemed wonderful, polite, warm, always respectful. She called me Ms. Charlotte, brought flowers when she visited, and offered to help in the kitchen. "Your cooking is amazing," she'd say with a smile. Marcus is so lucky he grew up eating like this. Seeing my son happy again meant everything to me. One Tuesday afternoon, while making the final shopping list for the buffet, I heard voices on the patio. Marcus was on a work call, and Tiffany was chatting with her sister Audrey, who was visiting from out of town. I wasn't listening until I heard my name. Something in Tiffany's tone made me pause. I quietly moved closer to the kitchen window, hidden behind the curtain. "I've got everything planned for the kids at the wedding," Tiffany said cheerfully. "Marcus's mum will watch them the whole time. About 15 kids, babies, 2 teenagers. She's used to it." Audrey laughed. "That's genius. So you guys can drink, dance, and enjoy yourselves while the old lady handles all the screaming kids." "Exactly," Tiffany replied, her voice suddenly cold. "She loves helping. She won't even realize we're using her. It's like having a free nanny all night." Audrey asked, "Did you even ask her?" Tiffany laughed. "No, Marcus just mentioned there'd be kids, and she immediately offered help. Of course, we said yes. She won't charge us, and she'll be busy, so she won't interfere or talk too much." Then came the part that broke me. "And since she'll be running after kids all night," Tiffany added, laughing, "she won't even have time to eat the buffet she's preparing. More food for the important guests." They both laughed. I stood there, frozen hands covered in flour from baking cookies for their wedding, realizing that while I was spending my money, time, and love, they saw me as nothing more than convenient help, not family, not a guest, but a servant. For 72 years, I had put family first, and this was my reward. Tiffany kept going, unaware I was listening. "At least this way she won't interrupt adult conversations." You know how mothers-in-law are. Boring stories, opinions no one asked for. Audrey burst out laughing. At least yours will finally be useful. Then Marcus returned, cheerful as ever. What are you two laughing about? Tiffany instantly switched back to her sweet voice. I was just telling Audrey how well organized everything is. The kids won't be a problem at all. And that's when I knew I wasn't going to be there at the wedding. Your mum is going to watch them. My mum is an angel, Marcus said proudly. She's always happy to help the family. It's amazing how she still has the energy to run after kids at her age. Yes. Very convenient to have a mother-in-law like that, Tiffany murmured. Marcus didn't notice the sarcasm in her voice. I stepped away from the window, my stomach turning. I felt sick. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. For 2 years, this woman had played the role of the perfect daughter. She had smiled at me, thanked me, even called me mum on special occasions. And all this time she saw me as free labor and an inconvenience. My legs were shaking as I went upstairs. I sat down on the edge of my bed, the same bed where I had slept beside my husband for 30 years before cancer took him. My eyes fell on the framed photos on my nightstand. Marcus at his college graduation, Marcus at his first communion, at our family vacations at the beach when he was still a little boy. I had dedicated my entire life to being the best mother I could be. And just when I thought I was finally gaining a daughter, I realized I was nothing more than a useful tool. For the next few days, I acted as if nothing had happened. When Marcus called to ask about the wedding preparations, I answered calmly, "Yes, sweetheart. Everything is going perfectly. The buffet will be wonderful." When Tiffany visited and said, "Miss Charlotte, don't stress so much about the wedding. Try to relax and enjoy yourself," I smiled and nodded. "Of course, dear. I'm so excited." But inside something had changed. A plan was forming. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play too. I had lived for 72 years. I had raised my son alone after becoming a widow. I had run a family business. I had survived things they couldn't even imagine. I was not going to let anyone treat me like a servant in my own family. 3 days later, on Wednesday morning, I called my best friend Loretta. We had known each other for over 40 years and shared everything. "I need to tell you something," I said, "and then I need your help with a plan." She laughed softly. "Charlotte, from the sound of your voice, I already know someone messed up. Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the conversation I overheard, how Tiffany really felt about me, and how deeply it hurt. Loretta was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she sighed. "That girl is a snake," she said firmly. "After everything you've done for them, the money, the time, the effort, this is how they repay you." "I know," I replied. "But here's the good part. I have a plan, and I need your help." Say no more, Loretta said immediately. You know I'm with you. I explained everything step by step. But by the end, she was practically cheering on the other end of the line. Charlotte, you're brilliant, she said, laughing. That spoiled girl is in for the shock of her life. I've got your back. The very next day, Thursday, I put the first part of my plan into action. I called every catering company I had hired for the buffet. Good morning. This is Charlotte Fitzgerald. I need to cancel all orders for Saturday's wedding. Some tried to charge cancellation fees, but I managed to resolve everything by paying only small penalties. Then I called the florist. I need to cancel the centerpieces for Saturday, I said calmly. No, I won't be needing them at all. By Friday night, the night before the wedding, everything was done. I packed a small suitcase, clothes for 2 days, my medications, my favorite book, a few personal things. I zipped the bag shut, knowing one thing for sure. Tomorrow, they would finally learn that kindness is not weakness. Marcus had called earlier to double-check everything. Mum, how are the preparations? Do you need me to come help with anything? No, sweetheart, I replied calmly. Everything is perfect. Tomorrow will be a wonderful day. You're the best mum, he said warmly. Tiffany and I don't even know how to thank you for everything you've done. You don't need to thank me, I answered. Tomorrow will go exactly as you planned. That night I barely slept, not from nerves, but from excitement. For the first time in years, I felt alive. I knew I was finally taking my dignity back. Saturday morning, the wedding day, I woke up at 5 a.m., wide awake and full of energy I hadn't felt in decades. I took a long shower, styled my hair, and put on my favorite coral dress, the one that always made me feel elegant and confident. It wasn't the dress I had planned to wear to the wedding, but something even more fitting for such an important day at exactly 7 a.m. Loretta arrived with 2 suitcases and a mischievous smile that instantly filled me with courage. Ready for your day of freedom, Charlotte? She asked, hugging me tightly. More than ready, Lo, I replied. I've been waiting for this moment for 2 years without even realizing it. We had booked a luxury spa 2 hours outside the city, a beautiful place overlooking a lake. Massages, facials, gourmet food, and a room with a private jacuzzi. For the first time in decades, the money I had saved for others was finally being spent on myself. Before leaving, I wrote a letter and placed it on the kitchen table right where Marcus always sat when he visited. Dear Marcus, by the time you read this, I'll be enjoying a well-deserved rest. For months, I prepared everything to make your wedding perfect. But yesterday I learned that Tiffany and you had different plans for me. Apparently, my role was to be a free nanny for 15 children throughout the entire reception, without anyone bothering to ask if I agreed. Since the buffet I promised was also part of those unspoken duties, I decided to cancel everything. I hope you're able to find a quick solution. I'll be back Sunday night. With love and with dignity, Mum asterisk, as Loretta loaded the suitcases into the car, I took one last look around my house. The kitchen where I had planned to cook all night. The dining room where I arranged centerpieces. The living room where I tested flower arrangements. Everything had been done with love. And that love had been mistaken for obligation. Are you sure about this? Loretta asked as I got into the car. Once we go, there's no turning back. Lo, I'm 72 years old, I said quietly. If I don't stand up for myself now, when will I? The drive felt liberating. As the scenery passed by, we talked about our lives, our struggles, our memories. Remember when our kids were little and we thought the biggest problem was getting them to eat vegetables? Loretta laughed. I miss those simple problems, I replied. Back then, love was received as love, not as servitude. We arrived at the spa at 10 a.m. It was even more beautiful than the photos, manicured gardens, a peaceful lake view, and an atmosphere that instantly calmed my soul. The receptionist greeted us with mimosas. Welcome, ladies. Is this a special occasion? Yes, I said with a genuine smile. I'm celebrating my independence. As I settled into my Lakeview room, I couldn't help imagining what was happening back in the city. Buffet preparations should have started hours ago. Marcus was probably calling to ask if I needed help. At 11:30 a.m., just as I was about to begin my first massage, my phone started ringing. Marcus. I let it ring. It rang again. And again. I turned the phone off. Is everything okay? The masseuse asked, noticing my smile. Perfectly fine, I replied. Please continue. For the next 3 hours, I focused entirely on myself. The hot stone massage melted away years of tension. The facial left my skin glowing. Loretta and I enjoyed lunch, delicious food I didn't have to cook, served by people who treated me with kindness and respect. You know what I love most about today? I said, sipping white wine on the terrace. What's that? Loretta asked. For the first time in 2 years, I'm doing exactly what I want, when I want, without asking anyone if they need something from me first. Loretta raised her glass. To that, and to the look on Tiffany's face right now, at 3 p.m., I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls from Marcus, 8 text messages, 3 missed calls from Tiffany. The messages grew more frantic with each one. Mum, where are you? Please call me. I found your letter. The wedding starts in an hour. Guests are arriving. Where's the food? Tiffany is crying. Please help us. The last message came 15 minutes earlier. Mom, there are 15 children here. Their parents are asking who's watching them. I took a deep breath and called Marcus. He answered immediately. Mum, where are you? he shouted, panicked. Hi, sweetheart, I said calmly. I'm at a lovely spa with Loretta, enjoying a chocolate massage. How's the wedding? This can't be happening, he said desperately. There's no food. The caterers are confused. Tiffany won't stop crying. Didn't you read my letter? I asked gently. I cancelled the buffet when I realized my role wasn't guest, it was nanny. But, Mum, the wedding has already started. Marcus, I said firmly, you're a 45-year-old man with a good job and a fiancé who's apparently very organized. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Is there a fast food place nearby? Mum, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Enjoy your wedding. We're enjoying our spa and breakfast tomorrow too. Wait, he said urgently. Tiffany wants to talk to you. I heard crying, chaos, desperate voices in the background. Then Tiffany came on the line and her voice was no longer sweet. Charlotte, you can't do this to us. You promised the buffet. There are 150 people here. Tiffany, my dear, I replied as calmly as possible. I promised the buffet when I believed I was a guest at your wedding. When I learned I was actually the unpaid staff, I changed my mind. As they say, labor is paid. But the children, she insisted. There are 15 kids here. Their parents expect someone to watch them. I can imagine that's stressful, I said gently. Don't you have a sister who could help? What was her name? Audrey. I heard she thinks I'm very good with kids. The silence on the other end was priceless. It lasted only a few seconds, but it felt eternal. Behind it, I could hear pure chaos, children crying, adults arguing, chairs scraping across the floor. How do you know about Audrey? Tiffany stammered. For the first time in 2 years, her voice cracked. No confidence. No sweetness, oh sweetheart. I replied softly, when you're 72, you learn a few things. One of them is that walls have ears, especially when people speak loudly on my patio. Charlotte, please, she begged. Can we talk about this later? Right now, I said calmly, you don't need me. You need a professional nanny. I suggest checking the yellow pages. Let's see. 15 kids, 6 hours, about $900. Quite cheap compared to the $3,000 I spent on your buffet. I heard Tiffany scream in the background. Marcus, your mother has lost her mind. She says she knows everything. Then Marcus was back on the line. His voice had changed deeper, smaller, like when he was a boy and knew he was in trouble. Mum, did you hear us talking on the patio? I heard many interesting things, son, I said. For example, that I'm an old lady who needs to be kept busy so I don't interrupt adult conversations, that I wouldn't even notice being used, and my personal favorite, that I'm basically a free professional nanny. This time, the silence was even longer. Loretta, sitting across from me on the terrace, raised her thumb in approval. "Mum," Marcus began softly, "you're overreacting." "Marcus," I interrupted, "you are 45 years old, successful, intelligent. Did it truly never occur to you to ask if I wanted to spend your wedding chasing 15 children instead of celebrating my only son?" "We thought you liked watching kids," he muttered. "I like watching my grandchildren sometimes," I replied. "I do not like being assigned as the official wedding nanny without being asked, and I especially don't like being called a nuisance." "Tiffany didn't say that," he said weakly. "Marcus," I answered slowly, "I'm 72, not senile. I heard everything. I heard them laugh about me. I heard them joke that I wouldn't even get to eat. I heard Audrey say I'd be useful for once." Suddenly, a child screamed in the background. "Where's the woman who was supposed to watch the kids?" a guest yelled. My son ran off into the garden. "There's your answer, son," I said calmly. "The show has begun." "Mom, please," Marcus pleaded. "We'll pay you $500. Just come back." I laughed so hard Loretta nearly spilled her wine. 5 minutes ago I said this was a loving family favor. Now it's $500 to ruin my coral dress chasing children I don't know. Tiffany screamed, "Dois dólares." "Marcus," I replied firmly, "if you had $2,000 for a nanny, you had money for a caterer instead of making your retired mother pay for everything. But it was more convenient to let me pay and work for free, wasn't it?" Loretta poured me more wine and whispered, "You are magnificent." "Mum," Marcus said, his voice breaking, "please don't do this. It's my wedding." "I'm not doing anything to you," I replied. "You did something to me. I'm simply refusing the job you assigned me without consent." "But the guests are hungry." "That's called planning, Marcus. You assumed you had free food and free childcare. You were wrong. Come back right now or we'll never forgive you." Tiffany screamed. I covered the phone and smiled at Loretta. "There she is," I said quietly, "the real Tiffany." Then I spoke into the phone, calmer than ever. "Tiffany, you tried to use me. I chose not to be used. That's all. You selfish old woman," she shouted. "You ruined my wedding." "No," I replied. "You ruined your wedding when you chose money over respect." I simply refused to participate in my own humiliation. Marcus came back on the line, frantic, "Mum, the kids knocked over the cake. One hid under the table." Parents are furious. "And where is Audrey?" I asked. "The brilliant planner." "She says she didn't know she was supposed to watch kids." "She says that was your job. How convenient," I said. "The same woman who laughed about the old lady doing it." "Marcus," I continued gently, "I'm hanging up now. My chocolate massage is waiting. I hope today teaches you that your mother is not an employee." I'm a woman who deserves respect. You're really not coming back. I'm really not. I ended the call and put my phone on silent. Loretta clapped. That was masterful. How do you feel? She asked. Free, I said. For the first time in 2 years, completely free. Later, sitting by the lake, Loretta asked quietly, Are you sure you did the right thing? Yes, I replied, because he's my only son. And if I don't teach him this now, no one will. That evening, my phone showed 43 missed calls, 26 messages, and texts from strangers begging me to return. We had to order pizza, $1,200 worth. People are leaving. Tiffany is crying. I read them calmly, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt at peace. The most important day of her life. Then another message appeared. Marcus's mum, the photographer, is asking for family photos. I told him Grandma couldn't make it. Then unknown numbers started flooding in. Unknown number, Miss Charlotte. This is Michael, Tiffany's father. Please come back. My daughter is devastated. Another one, Audrey Charlotte. I know you heard our conversation. Please, forgive us. It was just a joke. I laughed out loud. A joke. I said to Loretta, planning to use someone as unpaid labor is a very expensive joke. But the message that truly caught my attention came from a number I didn't recognize. Carol, Miss Charlotte. I'm the mother of one of the children at your son's wedding. Several parents and I are very upset. We were told someone would be watching the kids, but there's no one. Some families already left. What they did to you is not right. I showed the message to Loretta. See, I said quietly. I'm not the only one who thinks this was wrong. Of course not, Loretta replied. Any decent person would see that treating the groom's mother like that is unacceptable. At 9 p.m., while we were having dinner in the spa's elegant restaurant, my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I recognized. My sister-in-law, Elena, my late husband's sister. Charlotte, she said immediately, what's going on? Marcus just called me crying. He says you didn't go to the wedding. Elena had always been honest with me. I told her everything, the conversation I overheard, the humiliation, the plan, all of it. You did the right thing, she said without hesitation. If my brother were alive, he would have gone straight to Marcus and set him straight. No one treats his mother like that, especially after everything you've done. Do you really think so? I asked softly. Absolutely, Elena replied. Marcus is a good man, but that woman has him completely manipulated. Someone needed to open his eyes, and if it had to be his own mother, then so be it. She told me Marcus had been calling relatives non-stop, desperate for help. Most of the family is on your side, she added. Rosa always thought Tiffany was fake, and Charles is furious with Marcus for how he treated you. After that call, something settled inside me. I wasn't being cruel. I was being a mother who respected herself and demanded respect in return. At 10 p.m., Loretta and I went to our rooms. I had a beautiful suite with a private terrace overlooking the lake. I put on my most comfortable nightgown, poured a glass of wine from the minibar, and stepped outside to look at the stars. My phone kept vibrating, but it no longer bothered me. Every vibration was confirmation that I had done the right thing. If Marcus and Tiffany were truly sorry, they wouldn't be trying to pressure me to fix their mess. They would be apologizing at 11 p.m. I finally read the messages that had arrived over the last few hours. Marcus, Mum, the wedding is over. It was a disaster. The kids broke 2 centerpieces. One guest's dress was ruined. Audrey had to watch some of the kids and she's furious. Tiffany says she'll never forgive me for my mum ruining her wedding. Mum, why are you doing this to me? I thought you loved me. That last message pierced my heart, but it also showed me something important. Marcus still didn't understand. This wasn't about love. It was about respect. I could love my son deeply and still refuse to be disrespected. I answered only that message. Me, Marcus. It's precisely because I love you that I won't allow you to treat me like an employee. A son who loves his mother doesn't use her without asking. A son who loves his mother doesn't allow his wife to mock her. I love you, but I also love myself. And it was time you understood that. His reply came almost immediately. Marcus, Mum. Tiffany says maybe it's better if we move to another city. She says she can't live near someone who ruined her wedding. I read that message 3 times. This was Tiffany's final move, emotional blackmail, punishing him by threatening to take him away from his family. I answered carefully. Me, Marcus. If Tiffany wants to move because she can't face the consequences of her own actions, that's a decision you must make as adults. But understand this. A woman who truly loves you would never try to separate you from your family as punishment, especially for something you didn't do. There was no response after that. I stayed on the terrace late into the night, listening to the water on the lake, feeling a peace I hadn't known in years. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't worried about pleasing anyone. I wasn't thinking about what to cook for Marcus, what favor to do for Tiffany, how to be a better mother-in-law. I was thinking about me. About Charlotte, a 72-year-old woman who raised a good son, shared a loving marriage for 30 years, survived widowhood with dignity, and deserved respect from her own family. That night, I slept better than I had in months. On Sunday morning, I woke up feeling rested, truly rested. No anxiety. No, not in my chest. Just calm. Loretta and I planned breakfast for 9 o'clock. But I was awake by 7 o'clock, sitting on my terrace, watching the lake in silence. My phone had been completely silent all night, and somehow That silence meant more to me than all the desperate messages the day before. Either Marcus had finally understood it, or he was angry enough to stop trying to manipulate me. Both felt better than what had come before, when Loretta and I met for breakfast at the spa restaurant. She looked at me thoughtfully. "You look different, Charlotte. Lighter." "I feel different, low," I replied. "Like I've been carrying a heavy weight on my shoulders for 2 years and finally put it down." We ordered a full breakfast, fresh fruit, yogurt, pancakes, and strong coffee. While we ate, we talked about everything except the wedding. We spoke about books we wanted to read, places we had always dreamed of visiting, plans we had postponed for years just so we could always be available for our families. "You know what?" I said suddenly. "I think we're finally taking that trip to Europe we always talked about." Loretta laughed. "Serious? You're not going to wait around in case Marcus and Tiffany need you to watch their future kids?" "Marcus is 45, I said calmly. "If he decides to have children, he can hire a nanny like everyone else. I'll be available as a grandmother, not as unpaid help." After breakfast, we extended our stay and booked the private jacuzzi for 2 more hours. We spent the morning doing absolutely nothing productive, and it felt wonderful. For the first time in years, my time was spent entirely on my own well-being. At noon, as we packed to leave, I turned my phone on again. There were 3 new messages from Marcus, all sent early in the morning. Marcus' mum, Tiffany, and I talked all night. She's very hurt, but she admits that maybe we didn't treat you well. "Can we talk when you get back?" The tone was different, calmer, more reflective. But something was missing. There was no apology, only maybe, and maybe wasn't enough. I decided not to reply yet. I wanted to go home, sit in my own space, and think carefully about what I wanted to say, and how the drive back was quiet. Loretta and I talked about what this weekend had changed for me. "You know the most important thing I learned," I said, "that you can love your family and still set boundaries." I spent years believing love meant saying yes to everything. Now, I understand that sometimes love means saying no. That's a lesson many women of our generation never learned, Loretta replied. "We were taught that our value came from how much we sacrificed." I arrived home around 5 in the afternoon. The house felt strangely different, quieter, almost unfamiliar. I made myself tea, changed into comfortable clothes, and sat in my favorite armchair. It was time to decide what came next. At 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw Marcus's car. He stood alone on the porch, head down, shoulders heavy. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Hi, Mum," he said softly. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Hi, Marcus, come in." We sat in the living room, him on the sofa, me in my armchair. The silence stretched until he finally spoke. "Mum, I owe you an apology." I'm listening. Tiffany and I talked all night after the wedding. At first, she was furious with you. But when I told her exactly what you overheard, she realized how bad everything sounded. And did you realize it too? I asked. Marcus lowered his head even further. Yes, Mom, I realized that for 2 years I treated you like an employee instead of my mother. And how does that make you feel? Horrible. Ashamed. Dad would be turning in his grave for how I treated the woman he loved for 30 years. That mention of his father pierced my heart, but I stayed composed. Marcus, I said gently, this isn't only about the wedding. It's about 2 years of assuming I was available for everything without ever asking me. I know, he said quietly, that when Tiffany suggested asking you for help, I never stopped to think if it was fair. I just thought, Mum always says yes. And Tiffany, I asked, how does she really feel? He sighed deeply. She's ashamed. She says she didn't know how to treat a mother-in-law and admits what she said to Audrey was wrong. Does she truly recognize that? I asked, or are you trying to soften what she really thinks? No, Mom, he said firmly. She recognizes it. She wants to apologize to you in person. But I told her I needed to talk to you first. I stood and walked to the window. The garden looked neglected. I had been so busy helping others that I had forgotten my own flowers. Marcus, I said, turning back to him, I need to ask you something very directly. Answer me honestly. Of course. Does Tiffany respect me as a person, or does she see me as a resource she can use when needed? He was silent for a long moment. I think, until now, those two things were mixed up, he admitted. But after seeing the consequences, she realized she lost sight of you as a person, and you. I asked, do you see me as your mother or as someone who solves your problems? He swallowed hard. For the past 2 years. Without realizing it, I started seeing you more as a solution than as my mother. I sat down again and looked him straight in the eyes. Marcus, things are going to change. I understand, Mom. What do you need from us? I need you to ask, not assume, when you want help. I need to be treated as a guest at family events, not part of the staff. And I need Tiffany to understand that I am her husband's mother, not her employee. That's fair, he said quickly. Anything else? Yes. I need the right to say no without explanations and without guilt or manipulation afterward. He nodded. Understood, and one more thing, I added. If Tiffany ever speaks badly about me again, you will defend me. You will not stay silent. You're right, Mum. I should have defended you from the beginning. After a moment, he asked quietly, do you forgive me? I love you. I said, but forgiveness is built with actions, not words. I need to see real change. That's fair. And Tiffany, he asked, will you give her a chance to apologize? If her apology is sincere, not something you forced, I'll listen. She's afraid you'll reject her. I don't reject sincere apologies, I replied, but I don't accept fake ones just to keep peace. When would be a good time? Give her a few days, and make sure she understands I don't expect friendship overnight, only basic respect. Marcus stayed for a while longer, for the first time in years. We talked as mother and son, not manager and employee. When parents started asking who was watching the kids, he admitted, I realized we had never even asked you. We just assumed. And how did that make you feel? I asked. Like an idiot, he said quietly, and ashamed that my own mother had to teach me such a basic lesson. After he left, I reflected on everything. Marcus seemed genuinely remorseful, but real change would only be proven over time. The next 3 days were quiet, no calls asking for favors, no messages assuming my availability. It felt strange and incredibly liberating for the first time in 2 years. My days were completely my own. On Wednesday afternoon, Marcus called Mum. Tiffany would like to come talk to you tomorrow afternoon, if you agree. Is she sure she wants to come? I asked, or does she feel obligated? She's sure, Mum. She's been very quiet these past few days, thinking about everything that happened. All right, I said, tell her tomorrow at 4. Thank you, Mum. It means a lot to both of us that you're giving her this opportunity. Marcus, I replied calmly, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for myself. I need to know whether this situation has a future or whether I need to accept that your wife and I will never truly get along. On Thursday, at exactly 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I barely recognized Tiffany. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain blouse. But what struck me most was her expression. The polished smile she always wore was gone. In its place was something raw, uncertainty, vulnerability, almost fragility. Hi, Miss Charlotte, she said softly. Thank you for seeing me. Come in, Tiffany. Sit wherever you like. She perched on the edge of the sofa as if ready to leave at the slightest sign of rejection. I sat in my armchair and waited. I don't know where to start. She admitted after a long silence. Start wherever you feel comfortable. She took a breath. Miss Charlotte, I want to apologize for everything I said about you. It was cruel, disrespectful, and completely unfair. And why did you say it? I asked. She lowered her head because I'm 26 years old and I've never had a mother-in-law before. My mum died when I was 15. My dad remarried a woman who never loved me. When I met Marcus and you, I didn't know how to handle having a mother figure again. And your solution, I said quietly, was to treat me like an employee. It wasn't conscious. She replied quickly. At first, you intimidated me. You're confident, capable, admired by everyone. I felt like I would never measure up. That still doesn't explain, I said, why you spoke about me the way you did to your sister. She was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice barely carried. Because when you feel insecure, sometimes you try to feel bigger by making someone else smaller. I know it's ugly, but it's the truth. At least you're being honest, I said. When you didn't come to the wedding, she continued, and I read your letter, I realized something awful. I realized I had been trying to turn Marcus into a man who put my comfort ahead of his own mother. And that's wrong. And how do you feel about that now? Ashamed, guilty, and sad, she said as tears rolled down her cheeks. Real tears, not the carefully timed ones I had seen before. Because I lost the chance to have a real relationship with the woman who raised the man I love. Tiffany, I said gently, I need to ask you something very directly. Do you truly want a relationship with me, or are you just trying to fix this so Marcus will be happy? She hesitated at first. I just wanted to fix things so Marcus wouldn't suffer, she admitted. But these past few days, I realized I also lost something important. I lost the chance to have a mum again. I can't be your mother, I said calmly. Your mother died, and no one can replace her. But I can be your mother-in-law, someone who respects you and expects respect in return. That's all I want, she said quickly. Mutual respect, and a chance to start over. And are you truly willing to change how you treat me? Yes, I will no longer assume you're available. I'll ask before making plans that involve you, and I'll treat you as family, not as staff. And if I say no, I asked, then I'll respect it. No guilt, no pressure. We sat in silence for a few moments. She waited, but I needed time. Tiffany, I said finally, I'm going to be honest. I don't trust you yet. She nodded immediately. I understand. You'll need to prove this with actions, not words spoken during a crisis. What do you need me to do? I need time, I said. I need to see how you treat me when things are calm, not when you're afraid of consequences. Will you give me that chance? Yes, I said, but it will be the only one. If you ever disrespect me again or treat me like an employee, there will be no second chance. I understand. She hesitated. Is there anything I can do now to begin rebuilding your trust? Yes, I replied. I want you to tell your sister Audrey the full truth, not a softened version. I want her to understand that what was said about me was wrong. Tiffany nodded immediately. I already did. On Monday. She wants to apologize to you. I don't need her apology, I said. But I do need her to understand that she cannot speak about me that way, especially in my home. She understands it. She's deeply ashamed. Good. She stood to leave, then turned back at the door. Miss Charlotte, may I ask you something? Go ahead, I said, that sometimes a single no changes everything. In the months that followed, I often thought about how close I had come to losing myself forever. Not because my family was cruel by nature, but because I had slowly trained them to see my sacrifices as automatic. I had confused love with availability, devotion with exhaustion, and kindness with silence. For years, I believed that being a good mother meant never being a burden. That being a good grandmother meant always being useful. And that being a good mother-in-law meant making myself smaller so others could feel more comfortable. I see now how dangerous that thinking was. When you erase yourself for too long, people forget that you exist as a person at all. What surprised me most was not how badly things had gone, but how quickly they changed once I stopped participating in my own neglect. Marcus did not become a worse son because I set boundaries. Tiffany did not become a worse daughter-in-law because she was held accountable. Our family did not break because I chose dignity over convenience. It grew slowly, unevenly, imperfectly. But honestly, I learned that real love does not require you to disappear. It does not ask you to perform unpaid labor to earn your place at the table. And it does not punish you for having limits. Love that depends on self-erasure is not love, it is dependency, dressed up as gratitude. As I grew older, I also realized something important about women of my generation. We were taught that our value came from how much we endured, how quietly we suffered, how efficiently we fixed problems that were never ours to solve. We were praised for being strong when what we really were was exhausted. Strength, I have learned, is not about endurance. Strength is about choice. I choose when I help. I choose how I give. I choose when I rest. And I choose never again to allow love to be confused with obligation. My relationship with Tiffany is still a work in progress. Some days are easy, some days are awkward, and some days remind us both of old habits trying to return. But now there is honesty where there was once performance. There is respect where there was once convenience. And there is space for both of us to be imperfect without fear. Marcus, too, has changed. He listens more. He asks more. And when he introduces me now, he does so with pride, not as someone who helps out, but as his mother, a woman with her own life, her own plans, and her own worth. And as for me, I travel more. I write more. I rest without guilt. I say yes when it brings me joy, and no when it costs me myself. I no longer fear disappointing others, because I know now that disappointing myself is far more dangerous. At 73 years old, I am not winding down. I am finally standing upright. I am not useful. I am valuable. I am not available. I am present by choice. I am not a servant. I am a matriarch. And if there is one thing I would tell any woman reading my story, it is this. You do not owe your silence to anyone. You do not owe your labor without consent, and you do not owe your life to the expectations of others. Sometimes saying no is not an act of rejection. Sometimes it is the bravest way to say yes to yourself.